You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Hey, we're coming here with a great podcast. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. Today, we're going to be exploring, you ever thought that maybe gardening can improve your life? You know, maybe going out there in the garden and doing some of that green stuff with your green thumb can make your life better? Well, I don't know. That's not this kind of show. This is a show where we have great authors on. So, welcome to it. Thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com for just Chris Voss. See everything we're reading and reviewing over there. Go to all of our groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all those crazy places the cool kids are playing. Our big LinkedIn newsletter. Subscribe to that as well. Also, go to youtube.com. Free for an unlimited time. You can go there and subscribe to the Chris Voss Show, but you want to grab it until that unlimited time runs out. So we're excited to announce my new book is coming out. It's called Beacons of Leadership, Inspiring Lessons of Success in Business and Innovation. It's going to be coming out on October 5th, 2021. And I'm really excited for you to get a chance to read this book. It's filled with a multitude of my insightful stories, lessons, my life, and experiences in leadership and character. I give you some of the secrets from my CEO entrepreneur toolbox that I use to scale my business success, innovate, and build a multitude of companies. I've been a CEO for, 33, 35 years now. We talk about leadership, the importance of leadership, how to become a great leader, and how anyone can become a great leader as well. Or order the book wherever fine books are sold. Today we have an amazing author, as always, on the show. Brilliant mind that's going to expand your mind so much it'll probably improve your sex life. I don't know. The attorney said I can't say that anymore, but I got it in there anyway. Avram Alpert is on the show. He's a multi-book author. He's the author of the newest book out April 19th, 2022, The GoodEnough Life. He must be describing mine, or wait, mine's The Horrible Life, but his book is called The GoodEnough Life, and he's going to be talking to us about what's inside of it and what he found in his research. He is a writer currently based in Hamburg, Germany, where he is a fellow at the New Institute. He's the author of several books, and of course, this new one. Welcome to the show, Avram. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you for coming. We certainly appreciate having you on. Give me your plugs, your .coms, where people can find you on the interweb.
So I have a website. It's just my name, avramalpert.com. I am a amateur Twitter user. I'm not there very often, but you can find me Avram Alpert. Yeah, I think that's probably the main places. And then just, scattered around. If you search Google, you'll find things I've written.
There you go. So tell us what motivated you to want to write this book.
Well, I think I was just sort of looking around at a world where you had so many wonderful, talented, caring, committed human beings, and you had so much capacity and possibility and so many good enough humans. Good enough is in that sense that we're all flawed, but also we're all good. So we have the capacity good, and also we deserve enough. We deserve to have kind of sufficient means in our lives. And then when you looked at the world, you saw that in spite of all of our good enoughness among all human beings, some were doing fantastically well. Some had more than they could ever use. And, billions of people were living in poverty, millions dying of hunger every year, millions dying of lack of access to healthcare. And I wanted to understand how it was that the way that we thought about life and its purpose might be contributing to that. Obviously, there are many factors, structural factors, economic, so on. But there's also just the way that we think about the world. And I think sometimes we sort of say, well, there's the most talented, there's the best, there's the greatest among us out there. And if we give them more, they'll make the rest of our lives better. We have a pull down vision of everything. But what happens is actually you just give them more, and sometimes their lives get better, right? Sometimes they get worse. But in the process, we're not kind of focusing on ensuring this goodness and enoughness for everybody that we all deserve. So I just wanted to explore that idea in the book. I look at it in how we kind of treat ourselves as individuals, how we think about our relationships, how we think about politics and society, and how we think about our relationship to nature. But it was really just a book to it's a plea for making a caring and decent world that really works, well for everyone, but not perfectly, because life isn't perfect.
What is the concept of good enough? Is that we need to kind of, I don't know if the right word here, some people might use the word settle. We live in a world, and you may address this in the book. We live in a world where, everybody lives their lives based upon what's on Instagram. I mean, there's people that are unemployed that and out of work and are probably unemployable actually at that point, who are, they go borrow some clothes, or I don't know, they go to the store and pick up clothes. I know there's some people that go on a date so they can take pictures at nice restaurants and they have no interest in the date. We live in this kind of Instagram world. The joke is that when the archivists dig us up years from now, they'll be like, wow, everyone was smiling in their society. It was really weird. They never frowned at all or cried. So is that kind of what you talk about in the book?
So I don't deal so much with social media, though. I think for
Mhm.
sure it is a force in our lives that really asks us to excel, right? Because you want to show that, okay, I was at the best restaurant, or I took the nicest picture, or look, I know the most famous person, or whatever. But there is also, I think there are potentials in social media, some of the kind of original things that attracted a lot of people to it, that it wasn't about what was amazing, right? It was about what was ordinary. You'd get to see your friends having a picnic together, and you'd sort of feel nice about that. And I think more and more it's become like, oh, my friend just, got this reward or whatever. We sort of try and show how good we are, as opposed to sharing these kind of just nice moments in our lives. But, the idea of good enough, settling has a couple of meanings too, right? Settling can mean this kind of, well, I settled, I didn't really want to take that job or whatever, but it was what was there. And that can happen. And that's part of life, that is some of our imperfection. But settling can also mean kind of having a solid base, right? Having a good, happy place. You're settled, you're feeling comfortable. I think it's more that sense that I'm interested in.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Okay. So, the one of the problems with the Instagram thing is people they never feel good enough. They're like, oh, I've got to keep up with the Joneses. I've got to keep up with Margie, and Margie's bought the latest, Rodeo Drive Hollywood bag, whatever you name your designer. I've got to go get that too. And it all has that FOMO effect, what we call the FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. It's like, oh, I've got to keep up with the Joneses. So is there a point where we just need to set that back then and say, maybe what I have right now is good enough? Or is it gratitude based at all?
Yeah, look, some of it is part of dealing with FOMO is recognizing you're always going to be missing out, right? The nature of life is there are multiple possibilities, and you only have one you. You can only do one of them. And if you try and do too many things, right, you also miss out. And that is the origin of the phrase, right? Good enough comes from a psychiatrist named Donald Winnicott, who talked about the good enough mother, good enough parent, good enough caretaker. And the idea being that, when you have a child, probably, hopefully at some level, right, you want to be really good to that child. And in fact, sometimes you want to be too good to that child, right? You want to give them everything. You don't want them to experience pain. You don't have problems. And Winnicott's point was, when you do too much for your child, you actually start to take away.
Yeah.
Because you're taking away their understanding that life is flawed and can be difficult, and we can't get everything we want. And it's from that childhood experience, he thought, that we become creative, we become adaptable. And so it didn't mean that we should then, just be mean to our children and have them fail all the time, right? But that we should be good enough to them. Right? We should give them, love and care and affection, and we should provide them with material and emotional support. And so it's not, the good enough doesn't mean you settle for whatever it is. It doesn't mean just, okay, life is like terrible right now, but whatever, I guess, it's good enough. So I can try to, no, it really has to be both good and enough. And those metrics are things, we all define for ourselves, but they're, within some limits, right? There's a limited number of resources, limited number of attention. If we're taking too much for ourselves, we're keeping other people from having enough. So it's trying to get that balance right.
That's good advice. Note to self: start being good to the kids. Now, yeah, I'm glad we did. If my father taught me, you just give daily beatings, whether they deserve it or not, just so they keep in line. And, CPS seems to have some sort of problem with it. Anyway, we do the jokes around here. Help us try and understand how to embrace the good enough.
So I think there are ways to do it at different moments, right? And you can think about it for yourself. But one of the things that I think about some in the book is, how do you think about good enough in your relationships? Because I think one of the things you hear when you think good enough is you hear settling, right? Like I couldn't be with the person I really wanted to be with, so I kind of settled and it's good enough. But I really wanted us to think, what would it mean not to chase the perfection, the perfect person who doesn't really exist, right? This is just not something we're complicated creatures. We're moody. Sometimes we're tired. Sometimes we're cranky. Right? No one is going to be perfectly seamless or ideal together. But what you want is someone with whom you kind of share some values, right? You share kind of a sense of what's good and what matters in life, and you can kind of build that together. And also that you're enough for each other. You really are there to provide that kind of emotional support. You're caring. Again, with your children, same basic idea. But also that you can appreciate each other's flaws, right? So that you're really not looking for, okay, I want this person that I'm with, they have to do everything right. And if they mess something up, like it's just going to be a disaster and everything has to kind of fit this form. You're gonna drive yourself, your partner, right? You're gonna kind of drive everyone crazy. So there has to be a threshold here, right? At which point it's abusive, right? It's not okay. It's not good enough. But beyond which it starts to also have kind of detrimental effects when we pursue too much. And then one of the questions of the book is really, what can we do to think about this in society? How can we think about it such that what kind of systems will make it possible that everyone has more or less what they need? And we live in a society that's not really the goal, right? That's just not like explicitly how we think about the world. We think, okay, if we get, again, the best people that have the most, it's going to benefit the rest of us somehow. It's a weird idea, right? I think of it like imagining, you have 100 fields and you want to figure out how to irrigate all of them. So you put all the water in one of them. And it's like, of course, the water's just going to stay. It's not going to spread around, right? You really need to kind of make sure that everyone is getting something, feeling like they can grow and they can flourish and they can become the people they are with whatever talents they have, whatever capacities they have. And so I try and think through some of the ways we can do it in society. I don't have a perfect solution here. I hope I have some good enough ones, but that's kind of what I'm encouraging us to think about. How do we do this for ourselves? And then how do we kind of bring the values that we want to see? Ordinary care, decency, joy, pleasure, the things that really make up a life. And how do we make a world that makes that more possible, more likely?
So it sounds like you talk not only on the personal level, but you talk about maybe doing a world, a sort of view where we all decide that, hey, we should maybe approach something in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I think a lot about, for example, about cooperatives, right? Instead of designing businesses that are really geared towards, let's get the, one person is going to invest all the capital and they're going to make all the money, right? We're all going to kind of go into this together, and maybe one person puts in more time or more energy. And so, we can have some small differences. Maybe they make a little more, they get more vacation time, put in more at some point, that's fine. But like, how do we kind of think about what kind of models will make it easier for us to all experience a good life? And there's other ways in which this happens, but it's not just money, right? We're also talking about attention. When you write a book, it's really great. I love talking to you. I really like doing these podcasts. It's really nice, but there's so many good books published all the time. And sometimes what happens is one author, you see them on every show, they win every award. Is their book so much better than all the other books? Probably not. I'm sure it's always, it's usually quite excellent. It catches something, it has a good publicist. There's all sorts of ways of this play out. But when we soak up attention like that, right, we kind of lose out on some other ways of thinking or other ways of understanding the world. And so the hope is that if we think about how do we limit that kind of attention economy, right? How do we think about attention as a resource that needs to be shared? And so that, I try to talk about that as well in the book. So for example, one thing I'm really interested in is lotteries. So instead of having kind of selection committees who just kind of, this was the best book of the year and everyone else said it was the best book, so we'll say it too. You say, look, here's 100 amazing books that were written this year. There's no way to really, these aren't like things we can put on a scale. Let's put them all in, whatever ones really we think are beautiful and wonderful and well articulated, and see which one comes out. And we'll give that one the prize. Or we'll give all of them a prize. There's 100 best books this year. Go crazy. So I try and think through some of those.
That sounds pretty interesting. It does, in the world that you're suggesting, does Instagram and Facebook and all the FOMO sort of apps still reign, or do we have to put those away?
It's an interesting question because I don't go so much into it, and you might have a better answer for this than I do. But I did read some interesting studies recently. Happy to hear more about it. But I read like that some of the what happens on something like Instagram is very similar to what happens in the economy, which is that there are a few influencers, like a small percentage of Instagram, Twitter users, TikTok, whatever, like soak up the vast majority of likes, views. And again, right, we're having an attention economy that's really just showing kind of small parts of it, which is, sometimes that's nice, right? There's something kind of nice, like, oh, we all saw that same funny video, right? Charlie bit my finger, like everyone kind of saw it and we could kind of laugh about it. But then I had, right, what got what got left out in that process? What kind of other things got lost along the way? What kinds of cultures of iniquity or cultures of distrust? What kind of ways of feeling kind of jealous or angry, resentment? What kind of things are we building up in what appears to be pretty innocent, just sharing whatever? So I'm concerned about that. And I think if we don't think seriously about attention and its distribution, we'll have people feel really left out, really angry, and we'll see a lot of the kinds of problems we see today.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like you describe, why we're having problems now. I mean, everybody seems more unhappy than ever before, and for some people, that happiness is the reflection that they get when they go on social media, and they're like, well, Bob's got a new car, I don't, and so I suck, and Bob's clearly winning at the new car game and life game, and so I'm going to be depressed and go drink a bottle of vodka. So, I don't know, whatever the thing is. I do that on Wednesdays. I really follow Bob, and Bob makes me depressed all the time because Bob doesn't drink vodka evidently on Wednesdays. But no, I'm just kidding. So it's a great way to get in touch with knowing if we're living the good life, the good enough life, and balancing, in our mind, like, hey, it's okay that maybe Bob has got the new car.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things, and again, some of it's going to be what you can do individually, and some of it will be, what you do in terms of how you think about the world you want to live in, your politics, your social arrangements. There isn't exactly, because life is dynamic. If you live in if you live in the Northeast, you need heat in the winter. And if you live in the South of the United States, you need air conditioning in the summer. The kinds of things we need are just not going to be exactly the same. So there isn't a simple, straightforward metric, but we can say, look, you have to be able to feed yourself and whoever is dependent upon you. You need to have housing, right? You need to have healthcare, some education. You probably need work or some kind of material means of sustenance. And then you also need, right, kind of things that make your life feel meaningful, right? You need other kinds of sufficient support. So you need people who care for you. I think you need to be able to care for other people, right? Part of what makes life feel meaningful is that people also depend on you and you can be part of that. You need to have something that makes you feel fulfilled, whatever that might be. And I mean, if something that makes you feel fulfilled is making other people feel terrible, then we need to talk about that. But assuming that your fulfillment comes from your pursuit of your passions and your interests.
What if my fulfillment is making other people feel terrible? I mean,
then I think we need to sort of say, maybe that's not a good enough thing.
I mean, it makes me feel good enough. I mean, isn't that?
But it's exactly what you said too before, right? So it makes you feel good enough one time, but then not the next time. And, yeah,
no, it's a bit who I'm making feel bad.
Yeah, no, I feel really bad now, Chris. I don't know.
I think I need to see a psychiatrist for narcissism or something. I don't know.
No, I think, assuming, right, that there are pathologies that we have and there are ways that we act cruelly, sometimes knowingly and sometimes not. And those are things that will make our lives not be good enough, right? Because we'll constantly be in conflict with other people. We'll feel in conflict with and working those through is then that provides that kind of goodness. So, if you're finding that you're kind of feeling like, well, this person has like this kind of shiny object that I want, you can look back at yourself. Well, do I have what I need? Do I have do I have meaning? Do I have decency? Do I have purpose? Do I have all these things in my life? And if the answer is, and you have enough to get by, like if the answer to that is yes, then it doesn't particularly matter. If though, right, we're looking at, say, the boss of the company has, a helicopter and he's paying you $5.15 an hour and you can't afford to eat, then we're not talking about jealousy, right? We're talking about a political problem. We're talking about someone who's really exploited. And so that needs to be discussed and addressed. So it's a difference between, the kind of minor, some people have more material objects, whatever, within a certain range. I don't think it's necessarily a problem. But when it is, right, that other person has that thing because you are being impoverished, right? You're doing the labor, but someone else is, that's when I think it becomes a different kind of concern.
There you go. So note to self, to be good enough, stop exploiting other people, Chris.
It's a great idea.
Damn it. I have so much fun, and that's actually my good enough, but I excel at that one. There you go. What are some other aspects that you think you should tease out in the book that people, I think, will find?
One of the things I think that's really important is that we are, of course, natural beings. We require an environment to sustain us. We don't live in a void. We need food. We need water. We need clean air. So our environment is good enough to sustain life, right? The natural world is not perfect. It's not endless. It can't just take everything we throw at it as much as it would be nice if that were the case. It has its own limits and thresholds and conditions that, right, we are pushing drastically, not just in terms of carbon emissions, but in terms of biodiversity loss, in terms of the regeneration of natural resource, water, trees, minerals. We are putting too much, kind of particular substances, nitrogen, phosphorus into the soils. And all of this is having, potentially catastrophic effects. And we've already seen some of these, right? With changes, in weather pattern, droughts, fires. And so, right, remembering that good enough isn't just about our own lives, but right, the lives of the world around us and developing an appreciation. Again, I think one of the things we sometimes think, or I've seen people say about climate change is that, well, the earth is so big, like it's just so vast and the heavens are endless. Like there's no way that this is what's going on. But it is, right? This is just not a perfect system. It was not designed for this. It wasn't designed at all, but it wasn't made in this particular way. And so we need to respect and care for that. So that's, the kind of end of the book deals with those questions. And again, one of the things I think we see when people are cognizant of this issue, though, is they say, well, what we really need to do is get the smartest people together and we'll have them invent these technical contraptions and these amazing tech devices. They're going to suck the carbon out of the air. They're going to come with this new kinds of electricity. And we absolutely need and have many amazing technological inventions and innovations. And I think that's wonderful. But that is also not really enough, right? There are just limits to how much we consume and take without thinking about regenerative processes. So I think the Earth's ability to sustain human life is amazing. I mean, we're doing it with 8%
so far.
So far. But exactly like you said, right? It's so far. And so we're not going to get some kind of quick technological fix, right? We really need to invest in all of us. And again, we need to make these situations that are good enough for everybody. So it's not, people talk about a just transition, right? That it's not just okay, if you work, the real genuine people, right? Whose lives are dependent on cutting down trees or farming with pesticides or oil extraction, right? We need to think about how these people can really transition into something that is more sustainable, more renewable. It's not about throwing some people or some industries under the bus. It's, how do we do this all together? You may lose your 16th home in Las Vegas.
Damn it.
Or whatever, but yeah, exactly. Sorry, Chris, we're going to, you're losing your 16th house.
Down to 15 again.
Yeah, but you'll be able to breathe the air. I think it's a good deal.
Breathing 16. So this is pretty insightful. And, I think it's time where we used to live in a world where it was good enough. We had the good enough boyfriend or girlfriend. We had the good enough, I'm at 54, I've been single all my life and I date and I see these lists that people make when they date, I want this and I want that and I want this. And, some people have 100 items on their list of what they're looking for, as if you can order people out of a freaking catalog, which you can't. Last time I checked, unless you order a Russian bride, then you can maybe get that out of a catalog, but that's probably going to not end well. It's probably not going to end well. They usually don't. But although I don't know, I can't say that. I don't know that as a fact. It could be somebody's
human trafficking. I think we do another point.
That's true. Yeah, we don't want to get into human trafficking, but I think some of the bride's legal. I don't know. Well, anyway, we do the joke.
People want to do things. That's fine, but if they're being forced into it, it's very dark.
We do the jokes around here, people. That's what we do. We set up weird scenarios. So, we used to be a good enough society. People would start relationships with somebody. I always meet these people and they're like, I want that love affair of that old couple that's 100 years old. They're holding hands, walking in the park. And you're like, well, you're 45 and you haven't settled down with anybody. And they're like, I haven't found anybody good enough. And you're like, well, what's your list? And they're like, I have 100 items on the list. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that when that old couple met, when they were 20s, he came home from World War II and she was, helping out with the wartime effort on her end, those Riveter Rosies. And, they met and had kids. They didn't sit around and go, well, I'm not sure if you meet my 100, list. And they just said, you know what? We kind of like each other. We seem pretty good to each other. And let's see where this freaking goes. And they stuck it out. And And a lot of people do that in this world too. They trade, divorce rates are off the chart because everyone's always trying to trade up, and everyone's like, oh, well, maybe there's something better out there. One of the problems we have with social media is a lot of people get, hit on DMs, especially if you're married, and they're like, hey, you're really hot. You shouldn't be with that dude anymore. And they're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't. And it looks like the world's so much funner out here. And then they get single and they're like, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. And now my children are bastardized. What am I going to do? So, we really need to get back to some of the things you're talking about, I think, in this book.
Mm. No, I think, one of the interesting things I found reading this book was I think he's a sociologist named Paul Amato at Penn State University. And he says that it's kind of fascinating that people who divorce when they remarry are more likely to divorce. Like the divorce rate for first marriages is like 50%, but the second marriage is like 70%.
Yeah, it's like 67, 70, and then it goes higher after that.
Yeah, it keeps going higher because part of what happens, right, is that, you divorce because if you divorce someone because you have a problem, you have a really bad relationship, it's abusive, or it's just you really changed in some way, that's, that happens. And then I think that's okay. But if you divorce because you think, oh, like, I really want the perfect partner, my partner's like 83% good, those almost always, you never going to find that person, or you'll find them for 5 minutes, like the first month, you have a honeymoon and it seems great. But so I think, what he says in his research is that the best, there's really nothing better than good enough, right? There's nothing better in which you have a meaningful, supportive, emotionally caring, sustaining relationship in which you kind of enjoy and appreciate each other's company. And that's good enough. And that's human life, because of course people are going to get on your nerves, and of course people are going to change, and they're going to want different things. But, there's a point at which, right, it becomes abusive, it becomes problematic. Of course, then divorce is absolutely what you should do, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For various reasons, people do these things. But if it's because you're searching for the perfect partner, you're likely to just keep searching your whole life.
Yeah.
I think that that is part of lots of things that we do, right? With the way people raise their children as well can also be, you really are pushing so hard, and it's totally understandable, right? You kind of look at a world where you can either excel and kind of be at the top of the social hierarchy and have money and have comfort, or you can kind of fall and really feel like, I don't know where my next meal is going to come and where my next job's going to be. As you hollow out the middle class, I think some of what you're kind of pointing out here is that as you don't have a place to project yourself into, can have a meaningful, decent life as a teacher, as a librarian, as a police officer, as a custodian, I can have a good union job and make life work. You start to, there's all sorts of stresses that come to kind of filter out into that. And then it affects how we treat our children. That's not to say, obviously sometimes we romanticize the past when it wasn't always so good for women or for people of color. And this continues in various ways today. But there was, I think, some of this that you're describing. There was a kind of solid middle class that you could live an ordinary, decent life. And that's, beautiful.
It's, people, I think they see so many other people have stuff, and there's so much of it that's faked. Like, it's amazing how much it's faked. Like I said, I know people that are unemployed and unemployable who, they have all those best pictures. They look like they're going places. They even have places where you can go to now where you can take a picture of you in looking like you're on a private plane, and it's literally just a cutout of a plane. It's like a scene set up. And you can go pretend like you're sitting in the chair of some private plane zipping off to Dubai. And turns out you're just, it's just a stage set. So, and it's interesting. People get caught up in it, and they believe it's true, or they have to keep up, or else they're falling behind or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Again, I agree with you. That a lot of this is kind of media saturation, a kind of propagandistic thing. I do think it's important to say as well that sometimes, it's not untrue, right? So my profession, I write and I teach, and there are fewer and fewer kind of good teaching. And so you do start to feel this pressure, like, well, if I'm not being the best at what I do, right, I'm not going to be able to make, like, if I'm not the best podcaster, I'm not the most charming, if I don't, whatever you say in your intro, the minds that are just going to change everything forever, I'm not going to make it. Like, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I'm good at or that I care about. And so I think, the more that we can think about how do we have a society that makes it possible for people to pursue what they're good at in meaningful ways. And again, lots of professions that are not glam, like being an elementary school teacher, being an aged care worker, being a custodian, being someone who collects the garbage in a community. Like all these things are things that make our lives, all of us, right? We contribute to society's meaningful ways. And if we're not making it possible for that person to have a decent salary, to raise kids, to send their kids to a good school, to have somewhere to live, to have healthcare, to have education, the basic things that make life feel meaningful and decent and connected, we're going to have problems, right? We're going to have people really kind of fighting each other, trying to get to that top. It's not going to work. It's going to tear us apart. And again, I think we're seeing that very clearly, that we live in a world that is really fracturing. It's holding together, but it's not working out so well for so many people. And I think if we don't start to transition in these kinds of ways to really think about a decent, caring life for as many people as we can, we're going to keep having these pretty drastic problems. And that's not even thinking about the nature side of it, right? So,
Do politicians need to take this then into account more? Like, do they need to maybe think about this as a political sort of, thing that we need to do politically?
I mean, I'd love if they did. I'm not a slogan writer. Probably good enough is like not the best rallying cry. I mean, I like it, I'm totally into it.
We don't have jobs. We'll just have good enough, people.
Yeah.
It'll just be a TV dinner on every table instead of turkey or something.
Maybe a little, TV dinners are the plastic. It's a ecological disaster. But I don't know what the best way to phrase it. What that sounds like. As someone who's trying to think about this kind of philosophically, as a writer, I found the Winnicott's phrase apparently resonated with me, and I was happy to use it and play with it. For a slogan, I don't know, but I do think the basic idea, right? What should we do as a society? It's not about us finding like the best, the most talented, and giving them everything and like hoping they work everything out for us. It's about all of us being involved and living these kind of decent lives and appreciating that there's some struggle in that. And there's going to be some difficulty in that, but we're going to be in it together and literally like actually together, not this like we're in it together, but I'm on my private plane or whatever. We're in it together, but I'm on a giant. No, we're actually in this together because we all are contributing and caring about each other. And that's our focus as a society. So I'd love to have that be the political rhetoric instead of this kind of divide and conquer rhetoric that we hear so much, which is really about, like you are the deserving ones and other people are not. And it'd be much more beautiful to really hear, no, look, we this is what it means to be human is we all kind of care about each other, helping each other. So I'd love that. If you or someone else comes up with like the perfect political message for this, that'd be great. I'm happy if people want to run with good enough, like, that's great, but there has to be something to carry that message of decency, care, material well-being for all of us, and knowing that again, it's never going to be better than good. Like we're going to have to deal with some problems.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, this has been an interesting, insightful discussion, and definitely we need to realign our values and everything. I think that's really important for us to take and do. Give me your plugs so people can find you on the interwebs.
If you want to find me, the easiest thing to do is avramalpert.com or @avramalpert on my much underused Twitter account. I'm currently at the New Institute here in Germany. You can find me on their website. Well, and I'm happy to be in touch. I like hearing from people. I respond to most emails unless they're really mean, but otherwise I'm pretty easy to talk to.
Those are the mean ones are the best ones.
Or maybe you're better. I just kind of like I can't.
There you go. So thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Avram. This has been pretty insightful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's really fun.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go order the book, The Good Enough Life. Came out April 19th, 2022. You can get it wherever fine books are sold. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. See everything reading and reviewing over there. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. And all of our groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and all those crazy places the kids are at the end of the day. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.